93.5, 1590 WAKR. Dan Mosher in for Ray Horner, and carrying on the Friday tradition, we have Joe Fortunato. And we're going to talk film, going to film school. Joe, are you on the line?
Yeah, Dan, I'm here. How are you?
Wonderful. Great to have you on, and so great to talk with you here this morning. And we're going to talk James Bond.
We always like to talk James Bond. I've done a few James Bonds in this segment before. We're going to look back at the 45th anniversary of For Your Eyes Only, which was released in June of 1981. It's directed by John Glenn. Not that John Glenn, a different John Glenn, but written by Richard Maybaum, Michael Wilson, based on the story by Ian Fleming. And I say story because this was the first Bond movie to be based on one of Ian Fleming's short stories instead of one of his novels. So a little bit different there. It starred Roger Moore as James Bond, had Carol Bouquet as the Bond girl, Topol as the villain, and Lynn Holly Johnson is a young, unrequited love interest in this film. It did get one Oscar nomination, but it's an important one for the original song, For Your Eyes Only, which was a big hit, and we'll talk about that momentarily. This was one of two James Bond movies, including this one and The Spy Who Loved Me from 1977, that Roger Moore considered his favorite Bond movies, as well as the two that he thought were his best. And you know, it's always a big debate about who's your favorite Bond, and of course the easy answer is Sean Connery, and I love all the Sean Connery films, but I grew up with Roger Moore as my Bond, so I have a soft spot for Roger Moore Bond films. And while it was believed that Roger Moore wouldn't be returning to the franchise at this time, and so they did a round of screen tests for a new Bond, which included Timothy Dalton, which he would eventually get that, but not now because Roger Moore decided to come back. The movie actually saved United Artists from financial ruin. This was at a time when, at that movie's release, the United Artists Studios was still reeling from the infamous Heaven's Gate, directed by Michael Cimino, which was a notorious $40 million bomb that was about to force United Artists to file for bankruptcy. When this movie came back, it took a worldwide gross of almost $200 million, and the studio was saved. So James Bond to the rescue, saving the studio as well as the world in his little world there. Like I said, previous to this, Moonraker in 1979 was a huge financial success, but the critics commented that film had become too focused on wild gadgets, outlandish plots, over-the-top villains, James Bond in space, all that kind of stuff. It was almost a screwball comedy. As a result, the producers decided to take this film into a more realistic storyline in this movie, For Your Eyes Only, and that's sort of a shift in tone that the producers wanted to do. They actually considered bringing back the Jaws character, the beloved Jaws character that had been in the last couple of Bond films, but eventually they decided that he didn't really fit this movie's more serious tone.
And I'll share with you, I really appreciate that this one came up on the, when we discussed a little bit about what are we going to do in the segment. And so I started revisiting the James Bond from the 80s. And so we would ride our bikes to the network video there down in Monroe Falls, and we would get the VHS tapes and watch these on VHS back in the day. And I will tell you that one of my favorites is A View to a Kill, and it's the Duran Duran song and the soundtrack that makes it with the song. And when A View to a Kill comes on, boy, you drive your car a little faster because that's the high energy adventure movie song.
Well, James Bond is also known for their main title sequences and their songs, and we'll get to that in just a second. Yeah. But also kind of a sign of the times. At the time, there was wide public interest in the 1980 Lake Placid Olympics, the Winter Olympics, and that was sort of the inspiration to use a Winter Olympics location as a backdrop for the film, which they did in this film. Another sort of unique thing about this film, and film goers might remember this, and this is a family-friendly show, so I want to say this delicately, but the film's main movie poster received a lot of protests from people at the time, as it revealed a little bit more of a female body than usually was done on one of the Bond posters. And those who might recall is a very famous image that has been parodied a lot of times, where the woman is standing with her legs kind of spread in a V, and James Bond with his trusty gun in between her legs with his classic shooting style. And allegedly, the photographer at the shooting of this movie poster asked the model to turn the swimsuit around, put her on backwards, so that it would show a little bit more of her behind area and that was sort of a notorious. Some papers wouldn't show the movie ad; they had to cover it up, and so there was a whole lot of kerfuffle about that. Some other interesting things about this film: this is the only Bond movie in the official franchise not to feature the character of M, James Bond's boss.
Mm-hmm.
He had just died of stomach cancer just after the filming had begun, and he couldn't do his films. As a result, the role of Q, the guy who makes all the gadgets, his role was expanded a little bit in this film as well. We talked about the theme song a little bit here, but the theme song, of course, was done by Sheena East. Mm-hmm. The song it was a top 10 hit both in the UK charts and the US charts. It hit number 4 in the US charts. It received the Academy Award, nomination, I should say, as we already mentioned, for Best Song, and it was featured as a song and dance number at the Oscars themselves. And apparently, the person who designed the main title sequences took one look at Sheena Easton and said, "I've got to have that face," because she was so beautiful as well as had a great voice, and they put her in the main title sequence, singing the title to the song. In fact, there was a time when they were going to have Blondie record the song "For Your Eyes Only." Can you imagine sort of almost a punk James Bond main title sequence?
Yes. And yes, you reminded me, of course, about those title sequences and about the end, how important the music is in the soundtrack. And you think about it. Also, thank you for reminding me about that movie poster. I just Googled it. Of course, this is the radio. You described it beautifully, so I don't need to do that. But of course, we have cameras in the room here in the studio. So for the viewing audience at home, yeah, you'd have to make a split-second decision about, do we show this movie poster on our video broadcast here? This is one that, as the kids, the parents might have come in and said, you need to take that one down.
Yeah, I mean, it was a controversy at the time, and I will say no comment on my opinion of the movie poster, but it was very much a popular movie poster at the time, and still is with Bond collectors.
And think about what all these, the James Bond movie more recently, in more recent history, with the silver BMW, what that did to sell the BMW.
Yeah, and of course, James Bond would have different cars over the lifetime of the franchise, and he would drive a different car in this film than he did in other films, and that was always something that was noticed. And there's a lot of product placement in a James Bond film.
Oh, sure.
And one other thing, a lot of times people listen to our segment and then they go and check out the movie over the weekend. If you do that, I want you to look for two sort of Easter eggs, if you will. One, when they're testing the gadgets in Q's office or whatever, and there's a guy that has a fake arm cast. People might even remember that. Was kind of funny. The guy that is playing that, named Smithers in the movie, he's played by Jeremy Bulloch, who was the person who played Boba Fett in Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. So around that time, that's Boba Fett in real life, Jeremy Bulloch. And then secondly, the famous line, James Bond, is said not once but twice in this movie, which is not normally done. Normally it's one time and one time only, and Roger Moore says that line twice in this film.
I love it. And of course, we're keeping the tradition going. Joe Fortunato taking us to film school. It's always great to listen. Of course, I've been listening for years, and you do great. It's great to be on with you here on a Friday. And thanks for taking the time.
I know we got to run, but I want to make sure that everybody knows about our upcoming Fortunato Film School that Ray and I are doing August 1st, and that's at Jilly's downtown. That's August 1st. That's a Saturday. We are going to be screening One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. And this is, if you've never joined us for Fortunato Film School Live, I will do live commentary of the film. We'll talk about it. You can have a wonderful brunch at Jilly's. Tickets are going fast, and we have sold out in the last couple of times. So you want to go on to my website, joefortunato.net, or go to Jilly's website and get your tickets. Get them fast, and you can choose where you sit. And if you decide to get brunch, they'll apply the ticket cost to the brunch, and so it's almost like seeing the movie for free. So that's just in a little less than 2 weeks here. August 1st, Saturday, the doors open at 11, and the film starts at 11:30, and we want everybody to get their tickets now so that you can join us there on August 1st.
Jilly's at North Side on the old North Main Street there by Luigi's in downtown Akron. What a great venue. I know those are very successful. They sell out, very well received. I know those are great. And yeah, thank you. That's August 1st there at Jilly's for the film school. They've workshop. I love it. Thank you for taking the time to be with us. Joe Fortunato takes us to film school every Friday. Thank you, Joe.